The execution chamber on Vorin Prime glittered like a cathedral made from ice and arrogance. 1,000 alien species filled the amphitheater, scaled, feathered, translucent, all gathered to watch the fall of humanity's last soldier. Above them floated the Galaxy King, Zarka the Infinite, his 6 eyes glimmering like molten emeralds. His voice filled the hall, a vibration rather than a sound. Today, the war ends. The Terran beast meets justice. In the center stood General Marcus Reed, age 42, human, tall, shoulders squared in a uniform scuffed from battles half the galaxy pretended never happened. The guards had taken his medals, his sidearm, even his boots. But they could not take the steadiness in his eyes. He looked out over the alien crowd and smiled, a quiet, infuriatingly human thing to do when facing death. Ambassador Evelyn Sharp sat in the front row, legs crossed, posture elegant, a diplomat's mask of serenity. Her hair was tied in a neat bun that caught the cold light, and in her lap rested a small ceramic mug printed with a faded Earth emblem. NASA. The aliens around her gave the object curious, faintly disgusted glances. Sharp took a slow sip, savoring the bitterness, while the king continued his performance. Humanity's defiance has ended, Zarka proclaimed. Their fire extinguished. Their general, symbol of barbarity, will be executed as a warning to all primitive worlds. A murmur of approval rippled through the crowd. Cameras hovered overhead, broadcasting the spectacle across 1,000 systems. The universe would see the monster die. Reed turned his head slightly toward Sharp. The faintest movement of his lips formed words no microphone could catch. Hold the line. Her expression did not change. She simply adjusted her glasses, as if something on her data slate required attention. The king raised his scepter, a curved blade humming with white plasma, and addressed Reed directly. Human, have you any last words before your species is forgotten? Reed studied him for a heartbeat, then shrugged. Just one correction, Your Majesty. You can't forget a nightmare. It tends to remember you. The chamber shuddered with laughter, cruel, mocking, relieved. The king smiled, indulgent. So be it. He gestured. The plasma coils brightened, wrapping the human in blinding light. When the flare faded, only a shadow on the floor remained. The king turned grandly to the audience. The galaxy is safe once more. Applause thundered through the hall. Horns, wings, and claws clapped in unison. The scent of ozone filled the air. The broadcast cut to commentators declaring peace restored. Ambassador Sharp rose, bowed respectfully, and approached the dais. On behalf of Earth's remaining administrative bodies, she said, voice calm and courteous, I thank His Majesty for concluding this tragedy with mercy and decorum. The king inclined his crown. You are civilized, after all, Ambassador. Perhaps your species will learn humility in extinction. Sharp smiled faintly. Oh, I think we learn faster than most. As she turned away, the cameras caught her expression, composed, unreadable. But her hand trembled just enough to slosh the coffee in her mug. To the galaxy, it looked like grief. To anyone human, it looked like restraint. She exited through the silver corridor of diplomats, their robes brushing against her as if she were something contagious. Outside, the air was thin and metallic. Flags of 100 empires fluttered under the shimmer of planetary shields. She walked steadily toward the transport pad, every step an act of deliberate calm. The vessel assigned to her was small, ceremonial, painted in the soft white of surrender. Inside, she locked the door, removed her gloves, and touched the comm embedded in her wrist. Her voice was almost a whisper. This is Sharp, confirming death of Subject Reed. Initiate Protocol Erebus. Silence answered her for 3 seconds, then a tone low and rhythmic like a pulse. Far beyond Vorin Prime, under the cold dust of Earth's moon, 1,000 dormant machines stirred. Lights flickered on, blue and deliberate, forming constellations that hadn't existed before. In the deep ocean trenches, hidden beneath volcanic vents, ancient bunkers awoke. The sensors labeled them Project Barista, caffeine reserves. Sharp poured the remainder of her coffee into the ship's recycler and watched the black swirl vanish. He saluted at the end, she said softly to herself. He always does. The ship rose through the atmosphere. From orbit, Vorin Prime glowed like a jewel, perfect, complacent. Sharp gazed at it, eyes reflecting the storm-blue color of Earth oceans. You killed one man, she murmured. Now you've made him everyone. The transmission reached Earth Command 15 minutes later. Admiral Kepler read it without expression, then chuckled, a dry sound like gravel. Well, he said, guess it's time to start the brew. On Vorin Prime, the celebrations continued for hours. Alien nobles toasted to the fall of savagery. Hollow dancers reenacted the execution in stylized, exaggerated form. The king retired to his private chamber, removing his crown, sighing the sigh of a ruler who believed history had been settled. He gazed at his reflection. 6 eyes, infinite wisdom, infinite vanity. But somewhere beneath the celebration, in the palace's sublevels, technicians noticed something odd. The execution recording kept replaying without command. Each loop grew grainier, distorted by static. And in the final frame, just before the light consumed the human general, his shadow moved, saluting again, even after obliteration. The technician froze, mandibles clicking nervously. Probably just a glitch, he told his superior. They both laughed it off, pretending not to notice the faint hum rising from the palace floor, the same frequency as the human heartbeat. Meanwhile, Sharp's ship drifted past the outer moons, its engines whispering. She opened a small compartment and removed a folded Terran flag, edges scorched. For a moment, she let herself feel the weight of it, the ghost of a friend, a comrade, a promise. Then she sealed it back into its case and closed the latch. Her comm blinked. Transmission received, said the AI voice from Earth. Protocol Erebus acknowledged. Coffee temperature optimal. Sharp smiled wearily. Good. Keep it hot. Back in the palace, the king stood before the grand window, admiring the distant stars. Primitive but persistent, he muttered. They should have bowed. Far away, on an unremarkable blue planet, seismic sensors registered faint tremors from beneath the Pacific. Engineers in hidden vaults watched as something enormous unfurled from the depths, a metal arm the size of a city, rising through black water, scattering centuries of silence. Sharp ship streaked through the void, leaving a thin silver trail that curved toward home. She leaned back in her seat, eyes closed, whispering, "Hold the line." On the screen, beside her, the execution footage glitched once more. The human general looked straight into the camera this time. He smiled, slow and deliberate, as if aware of who was watching. The feed cut to static. Outside, in the unending dark, the stars began to move. The command bunker orbiting Earth looked nothing like a military installation. From the outside, it resembled a floating coffee shop, brass domes, neon signs reading the grind, and a revolving banner that declared serving peace, one cup at a time. The aliens visiting the station assumed it was some quaint Terran ritual center, perhaps a temple to their caffeine god. In truth, it was where humanity planned the quiet end of empires. Admiral Jonas Kepler stood behind the counter, pouring 2 cups of espresso with absurd precision. His uniform was half-buttoned, his medals replaced by a coffee-stained apron that read World's Best Ad. His salt and pepper hair framed a face too calm for a man nicknamed the Warm Winter. Across from him sat 3 alien envoys, a gelatinous Sval diplomat, a bird-like Zurich ambassador, and a crystalline economist from the Vorin Royal Council. All 3 were visibly uncomfortable on stools that hadn't been made for their anatomies. Kepler slid a cup toward each of them. "Gentlemen and translucent friend," he said cheerfully, "try this. It's an Earth specialty. Liquid sanity." The Sval hesitated. "Is it weaponized?" Kepler smiled. "Only socially." He took a long sip of his own, eyes half closing. That's the stuff. Helps you think faster than you should and live longer than you deserve." Behind him, the AI assistant, codenamed Barista, hummed a cheerful jingle. "Grinding beans and empires since 2199, it chirped. The aliens shifted nervously. The AI winked at them from a holographic display shaped like a steaming mug. The Zurich ambassador cleared his throat feathers. "Admiral, we appreciate your hospitality. However, the Council demands confirmation that Earth accepts the execution verdict peacefully." "Peacefully," Kepler repeated, turning a dial on the espresso machine. The hiss of steam filled the silence. "Of course. We're all about peace. Peace just needs a bit of heat and pressure, like coffee." The Voran crystal being flickered irritably. "Do not play word games, human. The galaxy has witnessed your general's end. Any retaliation will be met with extermination." Kepler nodded, wiping the counter. "Retaliation? Heavens, no. We're just brewing closure." On a nearby screen, the execution replayed for the 1000th time. General Reed's calm face, the salute, the flash of plasma. The aliens looked away in triumph. Kepler kept watching. His eyes softened, not with grief, but with something colder. Focus. The envoys began exchanging data through their neural implants, unaware that Barista was intercepting every byte, decoding in real time. The AI projected the translation privately to Kepler. "They suspect Earth retains hidden weapons caches. Recommend immediate surveillance." Kepler replied without speaking. His neural implant sent a thought command. "Let them search. They'll find coffee shipments." Barista chuckled softly in their heads. "You're terrible, sir. That's why they pay me in beans," he murmured. The Zurich diplomat tried again. "Admiral, we would like to verify your orbital defenses. Standard procedure after disarmament accords." "Of course," Kepler said, leading them to the viewing deck. The vast curve of Earth glimmered below, streaked with clouds and ocean light. Satellites blinked softly like stars, too many stars. "There," Kepler said, pointing toward the Pacific. "That line of buoys? Weather control array. Keeps storms from ruining the coffee harvests." The aliens nodded politely. None noticed the faint red pulses emanating from each buoy, synchronizing like a heartbeat. "So," Kepler continued conversationally, "how's the king? Still polishing that floating crown of his?" The Sval made a wet gurgling noise that might have been laughter. "His Majesty is most pleased. He believes this marks the end of Terran militarism." Kepler chuckled. "Oh, he'd better hope it does. Our militarism tends to get enthusiastic." The Voran envoy tilted his faceted head. "Are you implying a threat?" Kepler waved his hand. No, just a bit of cultural context. You see, humans are simple. We love coffee, dogs, and revenge, usually in that order." They didn't laugh. He didn't expect them to. As they toured the station, the corridors buzzed with activity. Engineers disguised as baristas, mechanics in aprons, soldiers discussing brew ratios that were actually targeting parameters. Each conversation sounded harmless until you realized espresso shots referred to drone deployment speeds. One alien paused by a glass wall showing endless rows of stainless steel containers labeled Reserve A Kona Blend. Inside each was a war drone, dormant, folded like metallic origami. The Zurich pointed. "You humans store coffee in warheads?" Kepler didn't blink. "We store warheads in coffee. It's an aesthetic choice." Their translator hesitated, unsure if it was a joke. It was. And it wasn't. By the time the envoys departed, they were smiling nervously, convinced humanity had surrendered in spirit, if not entirely in logic. Kepler escorted them to the docking bay, shaking hands, a gesture every species found both endearing and mildly aggressive. As the airlock sealed, he whispered to Barista, "Activate phase 1 of the brew cycle." The AI's voice dropped a cheer. "Confirmed. Heating element online." Deep below Earth's crust, thermal vents rumbled as ancient fusion generators reignited. Across the moon's hidden hangars, machines began to rise on invisible lifts. Kepler returned to the counter, poured himself another cup, and finally allowed the facade to crack. The tired grin slipped. The soldier underneath the comedian emerged. He placed a photo on the table, General Reed and himself, smiling in front of a desert base, holding mugs that read, "One more cup before apocalypse." Sharp's encrypted transmission flashed across his display. Protocol Erebus confirmed. Awaiting second signal. Kepler stared at the words for a long moment, then exhaled. You got yourself killed for the plan, Marcus. Let's hope the galaxy's ready for the sequel. Barista projected a small hologram of Reed's salute, the same moment from the broadcast loop. He knew this would happen. He counted on it. Kepler's tone was quiet but iron-hard. They think they ended a war. We're just starting the conversation. The lights dimmed briefly as the bunker switched to silent mode. From orbit, the station's glowing sign flickered out, leaving only a faint red pulse in Morse. Coffee ready. Kepler leaned against the viewport, watching the stars. Funny thing about peace, he said to no one in particular. It's just we're taking a nap. Barista's digital face appeared beside him. Shall I wake it up, sir? He smiled faintly. Not yet. Let the aroma spread first. On Vorin Prime, sensors began detecting strange energy readings from Sol system. Analysts dismissed them as magnetic storms. But one young observer noticed the pattern, repeating in exact rhythm to a human heartbeat. She hesitated before sending the report upward. It's probably nothing, she told herself. But far away, deep under the Pacific, the first of the sleeper fleets unfolded its wings. The metal giant rose through dark water, its hull etched with the old Terran Navy emblem and a single inscription: brew time. Back aboard the grind, Kepler sipped his coffee, eyes fixed on the stars. The cup trembled slightly in his hand as the engines of the buried fleet ignited, shaking the world. He didn't look away. He just whispered, "For you, Marcus. The first cup's on me." And somewhere in the dark beyond Jupiter, a ghost's voice answered through static, "Hold the line." The first strike was quiet, too quiet for the galaxy to notice until it was already burning. In 12 sectors, human ships appeared at once, without warp signatures, without light trails, as if they'd simply decided to exist there. Alien analysts called it impossible. Humans called it showing up early. The broadcast that followed was polite. A calm female voice, familiar yet impossible, echoed across every comm system. "Good evening, citizens of the Empire. This is Ambassador Sharp, representing Earth's Department of Mutual Consequences. We don't declare wars anymore. We start consequences." Then came the music, scratchy, ancient, absurdly human. Frank Sinatra crooning "Fly Me" to the moon as fleets of Terran warships unfolded their wings. In the control room of the flagship Resolute Dawn, Admiral Kepler watched the synchronized assault unfold across holographic displays. His fingers tapped an invisible rhythm on the table. The entire fleet moved like an orchestra. No shouting, no chaos, just precision and momentum. "They'll call this vengeance," he said. "But it's math. Beautiful, burning math." Barista's voice hummed through the speakers. "Shall I adjust the tempo, sir?" "Let's play it smooth," Kepler replied. "We're not angry, just awake." The first enemy world fell, without a shot fired. Human drones hacked its defense grid, forcing all weapons to aim upward and self-destruct. From orbit, the explosions looked like fireworks over calm seas. Civilians watched in awe, thinking it was a celebration until the sky turned red. Across the Empire, alien admirals barked contradictory orders. The Vorin Council issued a statement blaming rogue Terran extremists. The Galaxy King demanded instant retaliation. Armadas scrambled into formation. By the time they arrived, human fleets were gone, replaced by looping transmissions of Reed's salute. The king slammed his clawed hand against the throne's armrest. "How do they strike without ships?" A trembling aide whispered, "They use our ships, sire. They've hijacked the network itself." Sharp appeared on the central holoscreen, sipping coffee. "That's the problem with shared infrastructure," she said pleasantly. "Someone always forgets the password." The feed cut out before the king could respond, replaced by another song, Johnny Cash, "The Man Comes Around." The lyrics carried through static, half warning, half promise. Meanwhile, on the Resolute Dawn, Kepler leaned over the rail as bursts of light flared in the void. Every alien fleet that approached fractured before impact, collapsing into silent wreckage. "They still think this is a war," he murmured. "They'll learn it's a conversation." Barista projected casualty counts, planetary distress calls, intercepted messages of panic. Kepler studied them all, without triumph. "How long until they realize?" "Until they see what's inside the signal, sir." In the deep archives of the Vorin Ministry, scientists decoded fragments of human transmissions. They expected battle plans. Instead, they found stories, recordings of soldiers laughing over campfires, children singing lullabies, voices whispering, "Hold the line." The messages spread faster than any virus. Aliens began hearing human ghosts in their machines. In one corner of the galaxy, an alien journalist filmed a human ship rescuing stranded civilians from a burning station. The soldiers handed out rations, bread, water, chocolate. The footage went viral. The caption read, "The monsters feed their enemies." The king's propaganda collapsed overnight. Even his own generals began hesitating before firing. "They act as if they own mercy," one muttered bitterly. Back on Earth, the old oceans boiled with motion. The caffeine reserves, ancient sleeper fleets from the first expansion, rose from the deep. Colossal carriers the size of continents breached the surface like whales, dripping water and vengeance. The clouds above them flashed with lightning shaped like circuitry veins. From orbit, Earth looked alive again, its oceans breathing war songs. Sharp stood on her observation deck, eyes reflecting the glow. "You'd love this, Marcus," she whispered. "You always said peace was a lullaby before the scream." Across the stars, the scream arrived. The human fleet entered the core of the Empire, burning through trade routes and cutting communications faster than anyone could comprehend. The galaxy, so proud of its stability, realized too late that humans had been mapping it not for conquest, but for choreography. Every outpost, every refueling station, every coffee trade route was a disguised supply chain. They used commerce, one alien strategist gasped, as a weapon. The irony was exquisite. The humans had spent decades pretending to be obsessed with leisure, sports, and snacks, until the galaxy dismissed them as eccentric primitives. Now those same hobbies became infiltration tools, delivery drones, entertainment satellites, and recipe databases turned into surveillance arrays. Kepler watched alien fleets flee into nebulae. "They'll learn soon enough," he said. "We're not after territory. We're after permanence." Barista's digital face flickered with a grin. "Immortality through irritation." Kepler chuckled. "That's humanity's brand." On Vorin Prime, the royal capital trembled. Alarms howled as unseen forces breached its defense field. Entire squadrons fired into empty sky. Then, from the horizon, a storm of light. Millions of drones forming a single shape. The projection solidified into the face of General Marcus Reed. The crowd screamed. Reed's voice, steady, calm, unmistakably human, spoke from every speaker. "You thought execution meant erasure. But death was only the rehearsal." The king shouted, "Destroy it." Beams tore through the hologram, but it reformed instantly, smiling. Sharp appeared beside the spectral image, her tone measured, polite. "You called him a beast. You called us fragile. But the truth, Your Majesty, is simpler. We adapt. You kill one of us, we build 1,000 from the memory." The projection zoomed in until the king's 6 eyes filled the screen. "The war ends," Sharp said softly. "When you understand it never ends." Every alien comm unit crackled at once. The signal spread across the stars, activating long-hidden protocols. Human drones stopped attacking and began building fortresses, relays, endless factories powered by stolen energy. The war wasn't just fought anymore. It was maintained, automated, eternal. Kepler received the status update. Construction phase initiated. Estimated duration, forever. He exhaled slowly, staring at the endless map of galaxies now dotted with red. "We've become the weather," he said. Barista's voice lowered. "Does it ever stop, sir?" He thought for a long time before answering. "Not until they stop believing they're safe." In the dying hours of the day, the galaxy's news networks broadcast a final message intercepted from Earth Command. It was audio only. Sharp's voice, calm, almost tender. "To the people of the galaxy, this isn't vengeance. It's equilibrium. You wanted peace without understanding cost. Now, you'll live in its echo." The recording ended with soft laughter, the kind that didn't sound human anymore. On Vorin Prime, amidst fire and chaos, The king looked up to the darkened sky. Somewhere beyond the smoke, a fleet of human ships arranged themselves into a single word visible from orbit. Remember. In that moment, every species understood the horror of eternity, because humanity had made war not a season, but a climate. And far from the burning world, in a quiet command chair surrounded by stars, Admiral Kepler raised his cup. "Here's to the never-ending battle," he whispered. The coffee trembled in his hand as another transmission arrived. Coordinates, encrypted, labeled with one name, Reed. The cup froze midway to his lips. He smiled faintly, eyes narrowing. "So," he murmured, "you're not done yet." Beyond the viewport, a shadow moved, tall, human-shaped, walking through the void toward the heart of the Empire. The palace trembled with a sound the Galaxy King had never heard before. Silence that moved. No explosions, no alarms, just the slow, deliberate echo of footsteps down marble halls, once reserved for gods. The royal guards had fled. The corridors smelled of ozone and burning code, like the universe itself was rebooting. Zarka the Infinite clutched his shattered crown and whispered to the empty throne room, "It cannot be him." But it was. From the far end of the chamber, the doors parted with no force visible. A figure stepped through the drifting smoke, backlit by 1,000 dying holograms of glory. He was tall, human, his armor scorched black, with veins of molten gold pulsing beneath it. Across the chest plate gleamed a familiar insignia, a Terran flag ringed with a coffee stain. The helmet retracted slowly, revealing a face no execution should have left intact. "General Marcus," Reed smiled. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "we need to talk about your energy policies." Zarka stumbled backward, claws scraping the jewel tiles. Your atoms were disintegrated. You're a fabrication." "Fabrication." Reed glanced at his armored hand, flexing it like a man waking from a long nap. "Let's say humanity got creative with backups. It's a hobby of ours, right after coffee and irony." He advanced, boots echoing like judgment. Behind him, shadows followed. Human war drones shaped like angels of rust and glass, their wings folded neatly. Each footstep from them left glowing prints that burned into the marble and spelled one word: remember. Zarka's guards appeared from side corridors, desperate, trembling. "Open fire." Bolts of plasma streaked through the air. Reed didn't flinch. The energy hit him and dispersed into the armor like light through water. The walls shook, chandeliers exploded, but the general just kept walking, slow, polite, unstoppable. "I told you once," Reed said, voice calm over the roar, "you can't forget a nightmare. It tends to remember you." With a flick of his wrist, the drones fanned out, disarming the guards without killing them. Reed looked almost disappointed. "Still think execution fixes problems." Zarka dropped to one knee. "What are you?" "A reminder," Reed said simply. "You taught us that death is a spectacle, so we turned it into an advertisement." The great windows behind the throne cracked as fire lit the skies. Through the fractures, the king saw human ships hovering in silence, miles-long behemoths forming concentric rings around the planet. But they weren't attacking. They were waiting. From above, a holographic image shimmered into existence. Ambassador Sharp, pristine in her dark uniform, holding her ever-present mug. "Good evening, Your Majesty," she said with the same courteous tone she'd used the day he executed Reed. "Lovely evening for redemption, don't you think?" The king hissed, his voice trembling. "You deceived the galaxy." "Not really," Sharp replied, sipping slowly. "We just told the truth early. You assumed it was sarcasm." Reed turned toward her projection. "They're learning, Evelyn. Slowly. Like boiling frogs," she said. "Except the water's made of plasma." The king's remaining ministers gathered, their forms flickering in panic. "You cannot win," one sputtered. "We are the galaxy's majority. You're one world." Reed's gaze hardened. "One world that remembers every wound you called justice, every orphan you labeled necessary." He gestured to the drones, which projected the faces of the fallen. Human, alien, soldier, child. "You thought we fought for power. We fought for continuity. You made us eternal by trying to erase us." The king shouted, You'll destroy everything. Not destroy, Sharp corrected. Reorganize. Reed reached the foot of the throne and looked up at the creature who once ruled 1,000 suns. For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the drones fell silent. You took my death, Reed said finally, and made it theater. You wanted to show the galaxy that humans could bleed. So we bled publicly. But you should have checked the ratings, Your Majesty. It went viral. A ripple of static rolled across the room as the palace's power grids flickered. On every world connected to the Imperial network, the same broadcast played. Reed's face calm, resolute, alive. His message was brief. You wanted peace without understanding cost. So now you'll understand it forever. Across the stars, billions watched as every human fleet stopped firing. Instead, they began building self-replicating factories, endless relay stations, monuments that grew from wreckage. The war didn't end. It systematized itself. Every destroyed world became a forge, every battlefield a garden of machines. The never-ending battle had become self-sustaining. Humanity had turned vengeance into ecology. Zarka stared at the projection, horror dawning. You've made the universe your prisoner. Reed stepped closer, his voice low. We've made it our classroom. The king reached for the fallen scepter. Reed's hand closed over it first. The metal hissed and melted under his touch, fusing into slag. You wanted eternal order, Reed said. We brewed eternal war. He dropped the molten fragment to the floor. For the first time in centuries, the king's eyes filled with something like tears. Will you kill me? Reed's expression softened, not mercy, but recognition. No. Someone has to live to remember who started it. He turned away. You'll rule what's left. A museum of your own hubris. As he walked toward the exit, the ceiling cracked open, revealing the night sky, a burning lattice of ships and light, each carrying the human emblem. The fleet pulsed once, twice, like a heart. Sharp's voice echoed through every speaker in the palace. Transmission complete. Protocol Infinity engaged. Reed paused at the threshold, his silhouette framed by flames and starlight. You wanted to be gods, he said softly. We just wanted to be left alone. Look what you made instead. Zarka collapsed against the steps, staring up at the retreating figure. Monster, he whispered. Reed turned slightly, offering a faint, weary smile. You say that like it's an insult. The drones followed him into the corridor, their footsteps rhythmic, measured. As they disappeared, the palace fell into unnatural quiet. The king rose shakily, stumbling toward the shattered window. Outside, cities burned in orderly patterns, like constellations drawn by mad architects. Each flame formed letters visible even from orbit. Hold the line. He looked up just as one of the human ships descended through the clouds. Instead of weapons, it released thousands of metallic spheres that unfolded into statues, memorials of faces from every species the Empire had ever conquered. Humans hadn't come to annihilate. They'd come to remind. Sharp's hologram reappeared one last time beside the trembling king. She raised her cup in a toast, to the end that never ends. Then the transmission faded. Reed emerged into the open air, the night wind brushing across his scarred face. The planet's twin moons hung low, reflecting on his armor's fractured surface. In the distance, human engineers, soldiers, drones, even captured aliens, worked side by side, constructing towering pylons that pulsed with blue light. Kepler's voice came through the comms, steady, proud. It's done. The grid's complete. The galaxy can't fight without us now. Reed gazed toward the horizon. Then it's not a war anymore. It's a system. Does it feel like victory? Kepler asked. No, Reed said quietly. It feels like permanence. He removed a small object from his armor, a cracked photo of himself and Kepler, laughing over mugs of coffee, back when the stars still felt innocent. He looked at it for a long moment, then slipped it beneath the soil of alien ground. For memory, he whispered. Thunder rolled, though there were no storms left. Sharp's final message reached him seconds later. We've become the myth they used to control us with. Congratulations, Marcus, you're officially immortal. He smiled without warmth. Immortals, just another word for tired. The horizon brightened as the new dawn rose, refracted through the dust of what had once been empires. The light caught the edges of his armor, igniting it with gold. Around him, the humans stood in silence, not celebrating, not mourning, just existing in the stillness they'd created. Reed turned toward the largest of the ships, the Resolute Dawn, now descending to retrieve him. As its ramp opened, Barista's cheerful tone carried through the comms. "Good morning, General. Coffee's still hot." Reed almost laughed. "Of course it is." He took one last look at the ruined palace. The king stood framed in the shattered window, tiny, broken, watching. Their eyes met across distance and smoke, two survivors bound by the same curse, memory. Reed raised a hand in one final salute. Then he stepped aboard. The ship rose into the sky, engines glowing brighter until the entire horizon shimmered. And in the silence that followed, the galaxy understood the awful truth. The man they killed had never stopped walking.